I came looking for copper but found gold moment. I was 9 years old when I gave my mom her first piggyback ride because she was passed out on the sidewalk near our home, drunk out of her mind. Is mommy dead? Was the first thing my younger brother asked when we walked in the door. I told him no, and that she was just resting after getting too much fresh air. He was only 5 years younger than me, but it felt like 10 because I was the one who taught him how to read, how to trace letters, how to roll his R's. And whenever our mom wasn't around, which was 95% of the time, I distracted him with cartoons and making shapes with shadows against the wall. I was 12 when I got my first babysitting job and was making even more money than my mom because her earnings were government support and food stamps. And when I came home with a new white t-shirt that I had bought from Goodwill, she slapped the smile straight off my face, over and over again, until I fell to the floor. I can barely afford to buy my beer, and you think you can come strolling in looking all fancy? I stared at her blankly. This was the first store-bought thing I had owned in years, because the rest of my wardrobe came from the lost and found boxes from nearby homeless shelters. And just when I stood up and got my bearings, she continued, "Get the F out of my home. No son of mine will be a show-off." My mind instantly went to my brother, and when I realized he was still at school, I let out a sigh of relief. And the last thing I wanted was to have my mom still be angry when he came home. So I decided to follow her rules and walked upstairs to pack my belongings. Everything fit into one backpack. As I left, I turned around to see if my mom would change her mind. Spoiler alert, she did not. I didn't even know where to go. I didn't know who my dad was, and I already knew from my mom's friends that all the local homeless shelters were full. I sort of just walked around for a while and let my feet do the navigating, and when the sky turned dark, I took refuge in my favorite playground, the one I always used to go to with Louis. So there I was, 12 years old, sitting on the swings at 11 p.m. when an adult came up to me. It was a woman with a soft voice. Her face was wrinkly, like she had smiled a lot in her life. "Why don't you go home?" she asked kindly. I looked her right in the eyes and smiled back without saying a word, as if I ever had one. We ended up talking for a while, and I gave her my address. She took my hand and brought me to her car. Turns out, she was a social worker. I thought she would drive me somewhere safe, but instead she drove me back home. When she knocked on the door, Louis answered, and he smiled so brightly it could have lit up the entire street. "Is this your brother?" she asked, her voice completely neutral. But there was a glimmer in her eyes that told me she was paying more attention than she was letting on. That night, I slept hidden under Louis's bed, and when I woke up in the middle of the night, his head was lying on my chest with his tiny arms wrapped around my neck. I stared at his soft face in a deep sleep, the way his lips curled upwards like he was having a good dream. That's when I knew he had to be protected, and I knew how our mom treated us wasn't okay, but I wanted the problem to go away by itself, and one day it did, or more specifically, the next morning, because that's when I heard someone banging on the door. My mom opened it, and I instantly recognized the voice. It was the same woman from the park. I crept down the stairs and saw a police officer standing beside her. He had one of those faces that seemed friendly, but looked like it could turn at any second. Luckily, my mom spotted me instantly and dragged me down the stairs at full force, because that was more than enough evidence for the officer to hold her down, while the social worker brought me and my brother into an emergency foster home. The parents basically treated me as a work slave, but it felt like nirvana, because they were treating Louis like he was one of their own, and that's all I wanted for him. In fact, they loved him so much that they wanted to adopt him, and since Louis told them that being housed with me was a non-negotiable, they took me in too. The process was actually extremely easy. Our mom didn't even fight for us, because the foster family paid her $50 to terminate her parenting rights to us, and she agreed without hesitation. Update: I'm now 17 and have spent my entire life working and studying. I have around $2,000 in my bank account. The family never really warmed up to me, but luckily Louis got the childhood I never had. Everything was going well until 6 months ago. My mom managed to track down what school I was attending, and I saw her waiting outside when school ended. I always figured she'd make her come back in one way or another, so I just asked her what she wanted. "You owe me," she said with a straight face. But I wasn't the same kid she dragged down the stairs anymore. I was almost an adult, so I told her to F off and just walked home. But that evening when Louis came home from soccer practice, he brought a guest. It was our mother. He told me I owed it to her to give her another chance. Full story on channel, link below.